Hello everyone, it is your favorite lunch break YouTuber, and today I have a very off-the-cuff video that I want to work on. I was in the middle of working on my knockups episode, but I'm suffering from a crippling case of writer's block, and just this morning we had our gameplay preview changes show up on YouTube, which has been taking a lot of people by surprise. This has to be arguably the most ambitious preseason or season changes we've seen, I would say, since the beginning of the game. Because oh my word, they're literally altering every single facet of the game as we know it. The entire Rift is being changed, which has not happened in probably ever. I mean, there was the Season 5 reskin where they kind of updated the visuals of the Rift, but they maintained the structure. And of course, they did impose a couple, structural changes such as adding plants, making the alcove and stuff like that. But compared to the changes they're doing now, this just fundamentally changes everything about the game. And of course, they're removing the mythic item system and replacing it with a whole bunch of different items. And yeah, there's just so much to go over. So I wanted to do a review video. I've done this for Season 13 back then. You may have remembered that if you saw it. And compared to the previous seasons, this is just, by leaps and bounds, magnitudes greater in scale than any season I've seen so far. So I want to go over it. Also, as a forewarning, we are in the peak of autumn season, and so leaves are falling everywhere. If on the off chance you hear any humming or whirring in the background, that's because there's leaf blowers outside, landscapers cleaning everything right now. So I'll try my best to edit all of those out, but either way, we're going to get right into it. So much to go over, so much to talk about, and I actually think that this will save the game. Because I think the issue that kind of took place with League for the past two seasons is that Riot was a little too conservative with how they wanted to go about doing changes. And though that isn't necessarily a bad thing, I think that's what kind of allowed the game to stagnate for way too long. In fact, I've had a lot of people talk about how the past two seasons, like 11, 12, and 13, have just felt stale for some reason. I mean, they've done changes, right? They've added the Hextech and Chemtech Drake, they've added the mythic item system and all that, but for some reason it just didn't feel the same as the sweeping changes they made back in Season 5, 6, and 7, where they completely altered entire classes, added entire new mechanics like plants. So this will probably be a breath of fresh air for many of us, myself included. I've been kind of burnt out from League. Not making content, I still enjoy making content and talking about the game, but in terms of playing the game, this is something that I've been begging for a long time. Just some very almost devil-may-care attitude to making changes to the game that effectively have no regard for the potential consequences. They're just going guns blazing, and for the first time ever, I actually think that's a very good decision to make, because we just need something big, something crazy, a wrench thrown into everything. Just the game is becoming too monotonous and too redundant. So having something like this will be a huge improvement. So let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Okay, so first things first, I love this right now. Nicky Boy I'm a huge fan of Nicky Boy's videos. I don't know if he is for me, but either way, I think it was a really fun reference because he was going a little crazy. No, not really, but people were thinking, oh my goodness, Nicky Boy called it, there's a Void event because the Rift is being very Void themed, but unfortunately not. Now, first and big change that they're going to talk about are the Void Grubs and Void Mites. The things, they honestly look kind of cute despite how grotesque they are. The basic essence of this objective is that up until Rift Herald spawns, I believe at it used to spawn at I think 12 minutes, but now it's going to spawn at 14. And until then, you basically have these monsters that for every one you kill, it increases the damage you deal to towers, which is a decent objective to go for, especially because it's a permanent buff that lasts until the end of the game. And it adds more, value to focusing on top lane. Although sadly, because of the changes they're making to topside Summoner's Rift, that kind of doesn't really make that much of a difference, but we'll get into that in a bit. As to the Rift Herald itself, it's mostly the same. Shelly's kind of the same. I mean, she looks a little bit uglier, but that's just the influence of the Void. One extra mechanic they did add to her is that now you can essentially hop into her, and if you remember the sled buff that you had back in, I think, Nexus Splits, where you can essentially ram, battering ram into a tower by riding it and moving onto it, that is Shelly as well. Plus, now if you're in that position, Shelly can actually knock up champions, so you have a free CC to use in teamfights. It's an interesting kind of twist, but I think most people are still going to use it for its original purpose of taking down towers. Now, as for the Rift itself, when you get a certain point into the game, the Void Camps will change. So what's going to happen now is that the blue and red buff will be significantly harder to kill, and I believe they're also going to do more damage, so it will take some effort to take them down. In exchange, however, it will give the red and blue buff, respectively, to the entire party, or to everyone who's alive, kind of like a global buff, similarly to Elder Dragon and Baron. which I think is an interesting premise. Now I hope, because now that they're distributing more red buffs and blue buffs, that they will remove the component of you being able to steal the buff after you kill the target, because in that case, everyone's gonna have a red buff and blue buff forever. Also, the Scuttle Crab, when she's taken down, she'll be also harder to kill. She will emit a massive wave of vision that behaves very similarly to the Chemtech Scrying Plant, where it will basically reveal everything and then damage all wards to 1 HP right here. It's a nifty change. It adds more priority to the Scuttle Crab in the mid to late game. And then Baron Nashor is being changed to have 3 different variants. The first one is the normal Baron, nothing too fancy. The second one is this one with the eye, which is called the All-Seeing Baron. The All-Seeing Baron will turn the pit into this, which I can't even begin to think of all the possible situations you can enter from, because the one downside of being on the red side is that you have no easy way to get into the Baron pit, in exchange for having an easier way to get into the Dragon pit, but it was more consequential for the Baron pit. Now, however, you can go through here, you can go through here, or just, the front. So there's a lot of different ways you can play around this, and I think this will be the most interesting Baron variant. Also, the All-Seeing Baron will have an attack that deals damage, I believe, to, where is it? Yeah, it will create a Void Rift that will do damage over time in a zone within the tunnel pit, which I think is going to be a pretty interesting kind of hazard that you have to think about. Then you have the Territorial Baron, which looks like this, or is it this one? I don't remember. Either way, the Territorial Baron will turn it into kind of like a Mountain Drake version of the Baron pit, which I think is pretty cool. However, he actually has crowd control. He will drag champions near him towards him, which will be interesting. And then of course the original Baron, which is called the Hunting Baron, will have lightning blasts from above. That's pretty cool. I think Baron has been one of the more boring objectives out there, just because even though there's only 2 major ones, the Baron, all he really does is just damage whoever's in front of him and then collaterally damage the person behind him. However, now this looks like it will be a pretty interesting thing to fight over, although I believe the Baron buff is not that different. Now, let's move on to the terrain changes, because there are so many to go through. This is what I mean by the game fundamentally changing in a way that you can't even look at it as the same game anymore. Look at the way this rift looks. It may seem similar, but look at this. First, we have a brush in the middle instead of no longer having a brush over here. The tri-brush, which is still in this side of the map, is curved in. So now you can't just like walk through. So the original, if you follow my cursor, I think you can still see it, right? Yeah. So if you follow the cursor, when you walk into this tri-brush here, you can go out this way, but now you can't. You have to walk around and go over here. So it gives the red side a bit more, I guess, safety in knowing that they can't explicitly be ganked in 2 different paths. Because if you're on the red side, you have to guard this buff and this buff. Or you have to guard this spot and this spot. Now you don't. You mostly have to guard this spot. Moreover, notice how far the wall kind of extends into the river and how much wider it is. This actually makes it harder for the jungle to gank top, which is why I believe that even in spite of the void, whatever they're called, void grubs, it's actually going to make top even more isolated from the map, because the jungler can't really gank top as easily regardless of which side you're on. If you're on blue side, the red team jungler is going to have less ways to get in because they can only really go through here. So if you ward this brush, you have full coverage of this entire section. And vice versa, if you're on the red side and you ward the blue brush, they can't gank through here anymore because they will have to dive you under tower. Before, they could kind of loop around. Let's say you were pushing up here, they can loop around and attack you from behind. Now they can't. So top is going to be even more isolated, which I'm not really a fan of because it just makes the game more matchup checky for top laners, but at the same time, it still, I guess, incentivizes more priority and control to be established around this area so you can get the void grubs. As for the jungle is being changed on the opposite side of the map too. There is a brush here. Now you also notice that this section of the jungle, or this entry point, has been made a lot wider. I actually do enjoy this change very much because I don't like how choke point it is back when it used to be, because it used to only be about this wide, but now it's a lot wider and then the brush is on the other side, so you can't like sneak through double brushing style this way. And also the other entry point is now all the way over here as opposed to being like right here where the dragon pit used to be. And you'll also notice how the jungle kind of curves a lot more, so it requires a bit more maneuverability, a bit more traversability. That's an interesting change overall, I like it. And as for the mid lane, the brushes have been pushed further back, which allows the mid laner a bit more safety. However, it also means that if they want to venture into the jungle, they have to commit more to it, because if they walk into here and then they see the mid laner kind of pincering them, then they're in a bit more trouble. But now, they don't have to worry about being immediately attacked when they're in the middle because the brush is right over here. So the jungler can just show up and just be like, what's up, right? The caveat, however, is that now there's an entry point straight into the turret from the jungle right over here and over here, as you can see right there. So it makes the map more symmetrical in this regard because there's an entry point right here. This will pose a lot of interesting challenges because if you're playing Blitzcrank or Thresh or someone who can hook, you can run in through here, and even if the mid laner is trying to hide under the safety of their tower, they get hooked and yanked into here and then they're in trouble. On the other hand, this also means that now, if the jungler wants to gank or dive under tower in the mid lane, they no longer have only one really easy way to get out, because before, if you wanted to gank mid lane, you had to dive under tower. You were going to be taking damage from this tower right here, which basically forced you to go all the way out this way in order to escape, or just to try to run back, but that's not, favorable, because up in top lane, you have this entire section right here, which is still relatively, hazardous. You don't want to be there for too long because you can get collapsed on, but at least you are safe, whereas in this case, you have not that much room to breathe, because you have two towers basically overlapping each other. But now a jungler can gank, dive tower, and escape through this way. It's a lot safer. So mid lane might be a lot more hazardous in this regard. I think it's going to be interesting because this might just be me from my own personal experience, but I find mid lane to be the most difficult lane to gank / tower dive because of how close the towers are right next to each other. Now with this change, they have a lot more different avenues of entry that they have to watch out for. So they have here, 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 here. It's a pretty scuffed lane, not gonna lie. Down to bot lane, oh boy. So bot lane structurally is mostly the same. You have this entry point right here, which used to be back here. If you remember, it used to be back here, but now it's here. And then you also have the tri-brush here and a tri-brush here, followed by a center brush here. So instead of a side brush like right here, you have one right here. So this makes bot lane even easier to gank than it used to be. I mean, not that it was the easiest to gank, but there's so many entry points in that you have to watch out for. And though it does make the map more symmetrical, the one downside is that now you can attack the jungle through here on the red side as well. So the red side is in a bit more trouble compared to where it used to be on the blue side. You'd be at risk of kind of flanking right through here. So again, makes the map more symmetrical, but now there's a lot more danger to watch out for if you ever push up, because if the blue side pushes up, then the red side jungler can attack through here, can attack through here and stuff like that, and vice versa. If the red side pushes up, they have to watch out for the jungler looping around here. So there's a lot more priority placed on getting vision of these 3 points, and maybe further in, because now you can kind of like loop around and attack through here. There's gonna be a lot more fighting happening in the bot lane. Good. Actually, I don't know if that's a good idea, because bot laners for some reason do not know the definition of playing safe. It might just be me again, but by level 2, all summoner spells are burned or someone is dead. That is what I noticed about bot lane. As soon as both sides are level 2, all summoners are burned or someone is dead. They just really enjoy fighting. Moving on, so the Infernal Drake is being changed a bit, but it's not really all that consequential based on what I've seen. Fist bumps here, there's more of a flavor or quality of life thing. So it's aesthetic, it's cute. I just don't think it really is conducive to the game. Now, new items. This is the meat and bones of it. This is going to be a long video, but I'm going to try to go through it as best as I can. First item is going to be Trailblazer. Trailblazer is almost like Dead Man's Plate. You can think of it like that. It's almost like Dead Man's Plate, but with a more supportive motif to it. Here's the items right here. You have armor, health, movement speed. It basically is Dead Man's Plate, only except on a support. Then the next item is going to be, or there's a bunch of them, the support system is being reworked in its entirety, but the best way to put it is that they've kind of condensed and consolidated the support items to be just like one. So you'll have Relic Shield, Spectral, whatever, like, all the different support items is condensed into one. And then after you upgrade it, you can then choose different purposes, right? Different kind of blessings. I think they're right here. So you have one here where you can reduce incoming damage, one here where you can slow or immobilize enemy champions. Sorry, I need to like breathe when I'm talking. Whenever I do live commentary, I forget to stop and relax. Anyways, when you slow or immobilize a champion, you get bonus movement speed and bonus health. That's a lot of movement speed, not gonna lie. You have one which is a Spellblade. That's interesting to have on a support. You have one that gives healing and shielding to increase their next damage, or reduce damage rather, and granting bonus damage. It seems like a kind of a mixture of Nami's passive, or more like Summon Airy actually. And then there's an explosion here for any, I guess, it's more of like an attack-based support. So they're kind of going about adding a bit more agency to support items to make it so you can have more combat significance to your abilities rather than just having a sightstone. As to the mage items, okay, so they're removing all the mythic items, pretty much, and a couple other items. They're removing Demonic Embrace, they're removing Stopwatch. Ooh. Thank you. Thank you, I really appreciate that. Okay, so first item is going to be Malignance. It is a standard ability power, ability haste, and mana item. And then when you damage an enemy champion with your ultimate, you burn the ground beneath them to deal damage every second and reduce their magic resist for as long as they're on the burning ground. This is exactly the kind of item you want to build for Morgana, for Lux, for any champion that can keep their opponent in place for a significant amount of time. It's a decent, it's also a decent kind of like ultimate channeling ability, but I think this is more for, you can kind of say this will be for basically any champion with crowd control. Anivia, Syndra maybe, because, you know, she has Scatter the Weak, stuff like that. Next item is going to be Caster's Companion, which is also a mana item, but the difference with this one is that you can actually charge power and then you deal more damage to a target based on how many charges you have. So that's a pretty good burst item for, I would say, any champion that wants to kind of prepare beforehand and then go all in with a massive burst of damage. So I'm thinking, again, this could be something that you would want to build on Syndra. You can also build this on maybe Ahri, who is going to be chilling for a little bit and then going in with, you know, Spirit Rush, Charm, and then getting her entire combo in. It's obviously going to be for mages. Echo might want to build this too, because if he's Jungle Echo, he would be able to build stacks out of combat, and then when he ganks, he does a ton of damage. Storm Surge is the non-mana item, and this is an interesting one because it's kind of like Phase Rush, but attached to an item. Also, it has two passives. So the second one is after 2 seconds, Storm Surge will deal damage after attacking them with this portion right here, and if they die to the lightning before it strikes, it immediately detonates in a large area around them, and then you gain 30 gold. So this is a sort of front-loaded / hit-and-run type ability. So you do all your damage, you know, you attack them, get them down a bunch of health, then get a burst of movement speed, you run away, and then they take a follow-up damage to it. So this will be good for trade champions, anyone who can get in, do a lot of damage really quickly, and then get out. So again, this will be kind of like an Echo item. Maybe this item is more appropriate than Caster's Companion, because Echo is more of a kind of 1, 2, 3, and then run away and then come back a bit later. Another champion that would want to build this could be perhaps Akali, because she can go in, do a quick trade combo, then get out and let the damage from Storm Surge do the rest. Curiously, Haunting Guise is back. This used to be the main component item for Liandry's Torment before it got reworked to Liandry's Anguish, and it's back, which is interesting because I think one downside to the Mythic item system is that it removed a lot of fantastic component items for AP champions like Haunting Guise. Haunting Guise used to be really good back when it just gave a magic penetration. It still doesn't, but at least now it deals increased damage the longer you're in combat for, so anyone who can deal kind of extended damage over time like Brand or Rumble, those kinds of champions. Then you have Crypt Bloom. I almost read this as Crypto Bloom. It is the old Void Staff, but with a bit of ability haste instead of just going full ability power magic penetration. Also, it has a supportive component to it, which is kind of weird. Whenever you score a takedown, you get a bit of healing for a portion of your AP. 50% AP is quite significant. I know it only happens once, but 50% AP, you know, standard AP champion would have about like what, 600 to 700. That's a lot of healing off of one attack. I just feel like this is a very uncharacteristic passive to give to a magic penetration item, right? Because it is a healing component versus something that helps you do more damage. I feel like this would be better on a support, not so much a DPS item, but that might just be me. Riftmaker is still here, however it has been changed to have Haunting Guise instead of Leeching Leer, and I believe you still have more of the same kind of thing. So instead of doing true damage, it gives you more healing, and then you also get the Demonic Embrace passive, which is 2% of your bonus health as ability power. Also, Omnivamp is updated with the following. Okay, but basically the same thing. Liandry's Torment is back. It's now back to its original purpose of being an ability power health item instead of an ability power mana item, which means you would want to build this on Rumble. Yay. I mean, it was Demonic Embrace before, now it's Liandry's Torment, but Liandry's Torment is basically back. It's exactly the same as it used to be. Increased damage over time and damage over time. Horizon Focus is changed now to have ability power and ability haste, and I think it still has the same increased damage to enemies that are for a certain distance from you, but now it gives a reveal for the entire area around them, not just the champion you're attacking, which will make the item a bit more, I guess, a bit more general to be used for like most poke champions or even supports. Seeker's Arm Guard is 40 ability power and 35 armor, and it has stasis attached to it. What the hell? What? Okay, hang on. They took away Stopwatch, but now they gave it to Seeker's Arm Guard, giving you both Stopwatch and Seeker's Arm Guard at the same time. Granted, 1600 gold, but what the? That's crazy. That's actually so broken. What? Oh man, I was optimistic. I thought, oh, they took away stopwatch. They're gonna make things a little bit better. But okay, never mind. This is one of the most broken component items in the game. I really hope that this doesn't build into anything because they need to make, yeah, it has to be a sacrifice. If you want to get the Zhonya's passive on a mage, you have to build an item that you essentially have to sell later for no extra gain. If this builds into something, I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna be very upset. Moving on though, we have Shadow Flame, which is pretty much the same thing. Instead of health, though, or not health, no, yeah, instead of health, it gives magic penetration, and magic and true damage critically strikes enemies below 35% health, dealing 20% increased damage. This right here is terrifying, because if you think about it, a lot of champions that are burst oriented already have some component of missing health damage, right? You have, like, let's say Akali, you have Veigar, you have, oh my goodness, this is a dangerous item. Wow! 20% increased damage. That's basically Deathfire Grasp, just without the active component. Oh my, Syndra, Veigar, who else? Annie? Oh my, this will be disgusting on Annie. I'm nervous. I mean, mages, in their defense, they need better itemization. They've had it rough for the entirety of the mythic item system's duration, but that's a scary item to think about. This will make one-shots very problematic for champions like LeBlanc, Ahri, well, maybe not so much Ahri. She's not necessarily a burst mage, she's more of an all-purpose jack-of-all-trades kind of champion, but still. I think anyone with a burst trade combo that's an AP mage is going to be quite scary. Cosmic Drive, so it goes back to giving HP, it's ability power, health, ability haste, and movement speed. That's a lot of stats, and it gives you kind of like a heroic gate, you know, Stride Breaker's passive, where if you damage an opponent you get movement speed. It's not a bad item to have. I think you would want to give this to Vladimir, you would want to give this to what's a champion that also likes to spam abilities? Maybe Karthus? No, not really. Karthus would want this one. Amp Tome is 400 gold now. It is a flat number, not this weird 435 gold that it used to be for years at this point. Rod of Ages is still here, thankfully, and still has most of the benefits to it. Okay, that's one component, that's one section, one class. Let's talk about assassin items. First things first, Voltaic Cyclosword. It builds off the Brutalizer, so we're going to go down and see what this is. Ooh, what is this? The Brutalizer's back, guys. After 8 years, it's back. And it's still 1337 gold, which is a perfectly acceptable decision to me. Wow, it's back. It's just back. Like, almost exactly the same as we used to remember it as. I mean, it used to be 10 armor penetration, but 8 thought, you know, it's fine. That's crazy. Anyways, let's go back to the Voltaic Cyclosword. So it's your standard assassin completed item stats, and then it has a static shiv passive to it, which is also attached to kind of like the old Dustblade. The old Dustblade used to be a burst of damage and then a massive slow for a short period of time. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like a static shiv, or almost like a storm, what's it called again? Wait, how did I forget what it's called? Oh, Storm Racer, there we go. How did I forget what it was called? It's like a Storm Racer, but for an assassin. Pretty self-explanatory. Profane Hydra, an assassin Tiamat item. That is interesting. It builds off Tiamat and the Bruiser. Those are not bad components to give to this item. And it also has an item active. So are they bringing back the Tiamat active? Because that'd be great. It deals damage to enemies nearby, and it also deals increased damage to enemies that are under a certain amount of health. And it also comes with, of course, the Cleave passive. That's cool, because I think some assassins really wanted to build Tiamat back in the day, but just couldn't because it doesn't synergize with the type of items you would want to build on an assassin, but now there is one. Hubris. I want to actually show you the item for this. So Spider Axe right here, he's awesome. He's kind of like replaced. If you remember, Surrender 20 used to be a website that kind of lists all the PvE changes before they came out, and but then it's been defunct since then, and this guy kind of took over. So if you go down here, he has an image of what Hubris actually looks like, and I think this is a meta commentary on solo queue players. So first things first, it has your standard component items with Serrated Dirk and Caulfield's Warhammer, and there's also this item right here, which we'll go over in a second. And the item is also just called Hubris, which is funny. It has two passes. Ego. When you kill an enemy champion, you're granted a statue of yourself. Yeah, as JK said, this is made for Kiana. This is made for champions that just want to... I don't know. What is this thing on? Yeah, like... That's gonna be funny. Anyways, When a champion that you've damaged within the last 2 seconds dies, gain 10 plus 1 per statue attack damage for 60 seconds. It's kind of like a weird Sword of the Occult kind of snowballing item, which is, I can dig it. I just think that it's really funny that it gives you a statue of yourself. That is, it's definitely a meta commentary. Definitely is. Opportunity, that's just the name of it. It is Serrated Dirk, Nether Shard, and 800 gold. It gives movement speed instead of ability haste, and the passive is just literally called Murder. After being out of combo with champions for 8 seconds, gains bonus lethality, so it's the old Ghost Blade, pretty much. And if a champion dies within 3 seconds of damaging them, you gain 150 decaying bonus movement speed for 1.5 seconds. This is the perfect item you will want to build on Hecarim. Kind of. Well, I guess Hecarim would want to build, I don't know, he can, if you want to go Hecarim, yeah, you can build Opportunity for sure. Rectrix, so it's a longsword and 550 gold is 20 attack damage and 4% movement speed. That's, I believe that builds into which item? None of them. Interesting. Then of course the Brutalizer, Cerulda's Grudge is here and it builds off the Brutalizer, which is funny because the Black Cleaver way back in the day used to build off the Brutalizer. And now that, like before this item used to have no final item version, or it used to just be a fixed component item. That's all you got out of it. But it was a good item because it was gold efficient. But now it does build into Cerulda's Grudge, and it has 22%, that should be percent, I'm guessing it's percent, not flat. And the damaging abilities slow enemies by 50%, what? Oh, it's only 2 enemies at low health. I was like, I misread that. It still has a slow, but it now only applies to enemies that are below a certain amount of health, so you don't really want to build this on like Ezreal or maybe Pantheon. Okay, now we're on to tanks. I'm really sorry, this is gonna be a long video, but I really want to be as thorough as I could about it. Let's go into tanks. So they're taking out Turbo Chem Tank, Radiant Virtue, Even Shroud, Gargoyle Stoneplate, that's an interesting one. Aegis of the Legion as well, that's also interesting. Anyways, let's go into Hollow Radiance. It is Balmy Cinder, Spectre's Cowl, and 550 gold. It is a Sunfire cape, but for magic resist. Finally, we have one of these. I've been saying for a long time, I hate that Balmy Cinder can only build into an armor item, because what if I want the area wave clear on a tank but have to build magic resist, like if I'm playing Malphite and I have to build against Silas or something, like I would want something like this. I still want the AoE clear. It does also have like the old Sunfire cape passive that used to do bonus damage whenever you did crowd control, but now it's just if you kill an enemy ward, it helps you wave clear a bit better. That's good. Then you have Unending Despair, Chain Vest, Kindle Gem, and Ruby Crystal. I think he actually has the item right here. That's Crypt Bloom, Hubris, Thunder Sky, and Unending Despair. There we go. So 400 health, 55 armor, and 10 ability haste. This looks like it's going to be the ability haste component item, which is interesting. While in combat with champions, every 7 seconds deal damage to nearby enemy champions and heal for double that. I don't know how significant this is. It says only 20 damage, I'm guessing it scales a lot more. This might just be like level 1 with no health, but 7 seconds is a long time. I mean, yes, tanks are in combat for a while, it's just that I think maybe it might be a little too undertuned. Again, maybe it just might be at level 1 with no bonus health. Who knows, it could scale to like 100 HP every 7 seconds, but I think this is like a worse version of Sunfire Cape. You do heal, but realistically Sunfire Cape does more damage. Kinetic Rookern, so it's a magic resist item and it gives 80 magic resist, that's excellent. So passive Mage Bane, after not taking damage from champions for 15 seconds, gain a magic shield for 18% of your maximum health. So it's like a nerfed version of Banshee's Veil, but it's a very dedicated burst item to have against mages. So Syndra, you know, you're even artillery mages. If you're taking a lot of fire, you just take a little bit of damage then you're good to go. This would be good for any burst mage, essentially. Veigar, Syndra, Annie, stuff like that. Jaksho is still here. It gives 200 health, 50 armor, 50 magic resist, and it still has this component here, except it no longer has the health steal. And it still has the component here, only it no longer has the health steal. Before it used to, now it doesn't. It's okay still. Deadman's Plate surprisingly is still here. There's the previous one that came before, but that's for supports. This is for Deadman's Plate. This is cool though. It has the Swifty's Boots component to it, which I actually enjoy. I think slow resistance should be more common given how many slows there are in this game, and now there is, and it still has the usual like momentum. Force of Nature I think is still the same. Pretty much, yeah, it's still the same. Enchanter items, we are I think like 2 more classes done, and then we'll be finished. Okay, so they removed Chemtech Putrefier and Chalice of Harmony. Glowing Mote is a component item, it's just ability haste, which is I think that's what this is right here. That's Glowing Mote, or Mote. Is the Mote? Mote? I think it's Mote. Dawn Core, 40 ability power, 20 haste, 150 mana regeneration. and you gain heal and shield power per 100% base mana regeneration. It's similar to the Chalice of Harmony component that it used to have, and you also gain Summoner Spell Haste. That's cool, because then if you want to take Exhaust and, or heal, stuff like that, that'd be cool. Echoes of Helia is still here, I think. I don't think it was changed besides this. And yeah, that seems about it. Staff of Flowing Water is still the same too, I think. Yeah. Okay, fighter items, the part that I'm interested in because I'm a fighter main. They took away Goredrinker, Divine Thunder, Silvermere Dawn, and Iron Spike Whip. Okay, so I'm sad to lose Goredrinker, but I'm happy to get rid of this item. I hate this item and everything that it represents. It is so broken and it is so abusable by so many champions. So good riddance. Anyways, Sunder Sky is the other image item right here. It is 55 AD, 300 health, 15 ability haste. And the first attack against a champion crits for 150% and heals for a portion of your missing health. So it's kind of like Goredrinker. I don't know how long this cooldown is, because if it is, this would be a very decent item to give to, let's say, Fiora, who can poke or grasp, or even maybe Camille. I don't know, I guess. Well, no, Camille's more of a backloaded. Who would want to build this, actually? It's a universal passive to have, right? Because it applies, you're going to be attacking if you play fighter champion. I just don't know who would want to build this more. I guess it just applies to anyone who would want to trade instead of like all-inning. So maybe Renekton, maybe Garen, someone who, they might have an all-in combo, but they prefer to just go for short trades. Who knows? Maybe Set would enjoy this one too. Oh my goodness. Tiamat is back. Tiamat is back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness, it is back. It's back. Nature is healing. Right? Look at this. That's crazy. And then Ravenous Hydra is still maintaining the 20 ability haste. Oh, but it lost the ability thing, which, I mean, it's fine. It's being abused more on champions like Zed or Talon, or like, those champions, not really so much the original champions they want to go after, but still. And this is still, it's like basically the old Ravenous Hydra passive, essentially. You know what? I'm not going to complain. I'm just glad that it has ability haste, because before it used to just be attack damage and lifesteal, and I think like health regeneration. But the ability haste does make it more usable for champions like Renekton. Now I actually have a reason to finish this. Titanic Hydra is the same, I think. No, it's back to the original, so Scion can't abuse this item anymore, which is good. It gives 55 AD, 550 health, and instead of gaining bonus AD based on your health, it just makes your attacks do wave damage based on your HP probably. And then it also still has the Titanic Crescent, so Shen mains are going to enjoy this. This is a great item to have for Shen, and I think for a lot of champions too. Fiora might build this again, Camille might build this again. I think this is better than the Titanic Hydra passive we have now, which is pretty much only good on Scion or Mundo. That's it. Now we have Nitro Hexaegis. 3000 gold, it builds off the Tunneler item, which I think is going to be this thing right here. It looks like Jarm's Fist, but now it's called the Tunneler. And yeah, I think it is, yeah. So 55 AD, 20% attack speed, 300 health, you get 30 ultimate ability haste. And after casting your ultimate, you gain 35% attack speed and 15% bonus movement speed for 7 seconds. One word, Jax. Who else? Mostly Jax, maybe Riven? I don't know. I mean, Riven doesn't care too much about attack speed. It helps, but I don't think she cares too much about it. Probably just Jax. Okay, they were blowing leaves for over an hour, which was really annoying. Anyways, we're gonna finish this video up here. We only have a little bit more to go anyway. So, next item is going to be Hullbreaker. Fortunately, Hullbreaker is not overpowered anymore, so it still gives attack damage, health, and movement speed, and basic attacks grant a stack, which if you attack an enemy champion or epic monster of max stacks, it will do bonus damage or against structures. So you can think of it almost like, kind of, I guess you could say almost like Pantheon passive or like a Demolish type proc, only it's like more of a, kind of like a 5-hit passive. So you no longer get an absurd amount of combat stats which you can use to bully anyone in a 1v1 out of existence, but you still get that bonus empowerment for siege and super minions, as well as bonus damage to towers, which is the good part. I think the big irritation with Hullbreaker was that it made a champion too difficult to contest 1v1, because it got damage, health, armor, magic resist. It was just too efficient in terms of gold value. Next one is going to be Stridebreaker. Stridebreaker is still here, and it still has the halting slash effect. It's just no longer a mythic item, which is, it's fine. Wit's End is also the same, I think. Yes, I don't see a reason why they had to include this. Oh, it gives tenacity. Wait. It gives tenacity. That's interesting. That's good, actually, because I think having other sources of tenacity is always nice. Spear Shojin is still here. So when you saw this item, which was it? Nitrax Aegis. So when you saw this, I'm sure most of you thought, oh, it sounds almost like Shoujin's passive. It's still here, and it still has the non-ultimate ability haste, although no longer scales, which is interesting, and spell hits grant stacks, which then cause each stack to deal increased damage. So it still is a decently, I guess, AD skill focused item, so still good on champions like Renekton, and still good on champions like Riven and stuff, although it doesn't provide the stats. I mean, we can kind of infer from Kindle Gem, Caulfield's Warhammer, and Pickaxe is still mostly the same, but I think just it's kind of weird that we don't see the stats. So Phage was changed to be back to its original item passive of giving bonus movement speed on hit. Before, like in its current state now, on live servers, it restores a small amount of HP whenever you damage an enemy champion, which is good for sustained trades or stuff like that. But now it's going back to the original one, and it has Steel Sigil, which gives 15 attack damage and 30 armor. I don't see what it builds into though. I don't think any of these have. And of course the leaf blowers are still here. Lovely. You know what? We're gonna power through it. It's okay. I'm sorry if you hear it, but we're just gonna power through it. We're almost done anyway. Last section is going to be Marksman items. So they removed Rage Knife and Gale Force. Thank God. I don't think it's a good idea to give Marksman dash items. Yes, I know we have Hextech Quota Belt, we have stuff like that, but Marksman, part of their counterplay is to take advantage of the lack of mobility. So I think giving them mobility kind of defeats the purpose of their weakness. Alright, 2 items to go, or 3 items to go. So we have Terminus. It's 40% attack damage, 30% attack speed, and attack supply 30 magic damage on hit. It has another passive juxtaposition where you alternate between light and dark on hit attacks each. Light attacks grant armor and magic resist, while dark attacks grant armor penetration and magic penetration. That's a very interesting way to kind of describe the new Gwyn's Rage Blade in a way. Guardian Angel, even though it is in the Marksman category, I think it still applies for everything. So now instead of a cloth armor, it is BF Sword and Steel Sigil, but no longer has the stopwatch component. It still has the rebirth component, of course, and behaves mostly the same way. And finally, Phantom Dancer, 20 attack damage, 30% attack speed, 20 critical chance, and 10% movement speed. And it still has the racking attack speed passive to it. So that is the changes for the entirety of Season 14. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of them. If you made it this far in the video, I very much appreciate it. I think this will save the game. I think the fact that it's so ambitious and the fact that there's so many different changes from the Rift to objectives to items to systems, this will breathe new life into the game in ways that I don't think has been done before. And even though yes, with these many changes, there's bound to be some growing pains, right? A lot of balancing that needs to be done, a lot of adjustments, but I think that is what we need. I think the problem with Riot in the past couple seasons was that they were too conservative. They didn't want to upset the status quo too much, which ended up making the game feel stale and boring. These are the kind of changes we need. This degree, this magnitude, this scale of changes is what we need for the game every single year to keep it interesting, to keep it new, fresh, innovative. I think that's what makes League more fun than just, adding a couple adjustments or balancing champions. Those are fine, but in the long run, we want to have a bunch of different adjustments to keep the game fresh, to make it feel like the game isn't just a rehash of last year and the year before. So I'm all for it. I don't know how many years of game design experience it's going to be and how difficult it's going to be to balance and iron everything out, but I don't care. I like this. I think it's cool that they're essentially throwing caution to the wind and just trying new fancy stuff in so many different ways. Like Baron Pit, the changes to the Rift, I'm excited. I don't know how much better to put it. I think it's a cool thing. And I'm hoping that this will bring more attention back into the game and more interest into the game, because it at least is doing that for me, and I've been one of the more pessimistic and cynical players out there. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I really want to hear what you guys think, because these changes are intense. That's the best way I can describe it. They're intense, and I'm just looking forward to it. But I guess for the time being, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other discussion videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the next video, and more importantly, I look forward to seeing you again in Season 14. I'm excited. I hope this looks awesome. I haven't felt this excited for the game in a very long time. So yeah, anyways, take care everybody.